Earlier in the week, we learned the Quebec government was going to allow retail businesses to stay open later on weekends. But then came more questions, primarily who was going to take advantage of these new rules. Well, we've got a partial answer this morning and good news for weekend shoppers in the Montreal area. Major retail hubs like Royalmount and Quartier DIX30 will stay open later on the weekends. Let's get the details on that and more with Andrew Lutfy, CEO of the Royalmount Luxury Shopping Centre and Quartier DIX30 in Brossard. Andrew, Mr. Lutfy, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. Absolute pleasure. Call me Andrew.
Andrew, listen, it's great to talk to you here. I guess I want to go into, first things first, you could tell us how much later you're going to be open on the weekends as of March 14th. Let our listeners know about that. But then what went into the decision-making process? I've heard from business groups and other businesses saying, not so sure it'll pay off. Don't know if I can get staffing. So tell me about what led you down your decision.
Absolutely. So listen, first things first, we'll be open Saturday until 9 p.m. and Sunday until 7 p.m. So if you think about, let's say, Royalmount, for example, we will be open Sunday, Monday, Tuesday from 10 a.m. until 7 p.m. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. So ultimately, yes, where's the change? We're adding a few hours onto the weekend. And listen, insofar as the impact, I wear, as you probably know, I wear multiple hats. And if I put on my CEO Group Dynamite hat, well, 90% of our stores are outside of Quebec. And in every single case, we're in better shopping center, better assets. In every case, we are open those extended hours. This is just a North American thing. Now, so we already have a pretty good handle as to what the delta in revenue is going to be. In our case, we estimated at roughly about 14%. So, I'm not saying it'll be overnight, but let's say as you think about maybe 6 months, a year or 2 years, as we transition, get used to these extended hours and kind of like fit them into the fabric of our lives, I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at about a 15% impact. And that impact is huge, 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 huge. If you think about doing even 10% more sales, well, most of it flows down to the bottom line. And so for the actual store in question, it could represent a 20, 30, or 40% increase in profitability. So it's very, very impactful. We have letters of support already because, as you know, we were lobbying back in August. So we have letters of support from the actual brands at Royalmount, lobbying to get those extended hours. So we have support from the stores. We have support from the brands. It's going to take, we're going to be open as of March 14th. So in a couple of weeks, you'll basically feel the impact of those extended hours. Will 100% of the stores be open the very first Saturday? Maybe not. I'm not sure. And we'll give, the brands and the staff, a degree of latitude and empathy to kind of shift over. But I'd venture to say, out of the gate, we should probably see 80% compliance.
Is part of the reason why it's so easy for you to make this decision, I think you referenced, the rest of North America here, is that in the case of Royalmount and DIX30, these are destination places where people go for far more than just shopping. Is that the difference
Absolutely. here? You nailed it. You nailed it. And what happened here is, listen, the Quebec government should not be in the business of regulating retail hours. Like, worry about the doctors, worry about, the teachers in the schools. They should not be in this business. They got bigger fish to fry. And, throughout North America, the government does not get involved in store operating hours. This is kind of like a relic of the Catholic Church from, 100 years ago. And, first was the Sundays and now this. That much being said, this modification is not a one-size-fits-all solution. So, and I'll give you an example. If you think about a small business, for example, on, St. Hubert Street or, a street store out in Joliette or Drummondville or so on and so forth, as it stands right here, right now, they're not even open necessarily every single retail hour that currently exists. They may not even be open on Sundays, and they may not. You have plenty of restaurants that are not open on Sunday, Monday, or Monday, Tuesday. So really what the government is basically doing is they're saying, listen, we're getting out of this business. You guys do, you do you. So you've got hardware stores, right, where construction workers often start on site at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning saying, hey, we need to open earlier for our contractors. And then you've got another extreme, like a Royalmount, that is a complete lifestyle, or Distante, which is a complete lifestyle shopping center destination. In the case of Distante, we have 70 sit-down restaurants.
Yeah.
So imagine this scene on a Saturday at 5 p.m. We're chasing people out of the stores. We say, leave. They're not ready for dinner. They go home, and then we're trying to get them back into the shopping center, back into our restaurants at 7 or 8 or 9 p.m. So it makes sense in both our contexts where we have such a big lifestyle component, and also listen, it's today, families need flexibility. They don't necessarily work 9 to 5 in an office and everyone's off on the weekend. People have flexible shifts. They have flexible schedules. They work from home. They work hybrid. Sometimes, they've got side hustles and whatnot. So really, that flexibility is very welcome for many people.
And
right?
I can just think about, going shopping. And then I want to eat dinner, let's say, at 5:30 or 6. And then I finish dinner, and now I can do maybe an hour or two more of shopping after I'm done dinner. Like, you just think about the possibilities there when you extend those hours.
Absolutely. There's a massive trend around wellness. And what's happening now is in the restaurant industry, you're actually seeing that 6 p.m. seating being a hot ticket. Right, that 5 p.m. Is a hot ticket. So people are happy to go and have an earlier dinner, but they still need to get to whatever shopping or online returns that they may do in store after dinner, or maybe go see a movie. So at the end of the day, let everyone do themselves, and everyone should have that freedom of choice. And I'll go a step further. We talk about like this impact. We often talk about the quality of life of those who have to work. Now, if you go into a shopping center, either Distante or Royalmount on a Saturday, currently just before closing, and you look at the working personnel, you'll notice 80% of them are Gen Z, right? And most of them are all part-time. These young people, I got to tell you, they're having a hard time economically. It's really hard to find employment. I'm not saying this works for everyone, but there are many of these Gen Z are very happy to pick up an extra shift or pick up an extra few bucks, help to pay for their studies or their lifestyle. Yeah. So, as we see throughout North America, it's more of the part-timers who will end up filling those shifts. And it's not this single mother of two children, that all of a sudden can't see.
That will be forced. And feel forced into working more. Gotcha.
It's a little dramatic. That's a bit some crazy dramatization.
We're with Andrew Lutfy, CEO of Royalmount and DIX30. So I need to ask you this, Andrew, because the last time you were making media noise was on the subject of Quebec's onerous immigration rules. It seems for store opening hours, the government is listening to what business leaders said. Can I ask you for an update on that dossier? Getting the top talent that you need for Group Dynamite, especially, to work here in Quebec, the message you had for the government saying, hey, we need more certainty here and be able to bring the top talent here. Has there been any movement? What's the update on that front?
Zero movement, unfortunately, zero. And I'll tell you, it's harder than ever. So I don't know what is going on. I mean, I've got my theories around the current CAQ government and all things immigration. I mean, listen, if they're not willing to keep, these, French-speaking, fully integrated families that came in within the PEQ program, I can't imagine them having any empathy towards us, regardless of the economic impact we have for Quebec. Listen, I'm waiting for a change in government. So before you know it, we're going to be looking if the polls are accurate. I think the CAQ government is riding off into the sunset. We're going to have to deal with a new government, and we'll see what their openness and empathy is towards business logic, economy, and.
So
we'll take it from there.
Can I ask you, obviously you're going to take it from there, but let's say whatever happens in the next election, we end up with a government that is not, because there's a couple options out there that may not be open to this. We end up with a government that isn't open to helping you get that top talent, Americans specifically, to move here. Do you have to really look at moving headquarters south of the border?
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, I'm not going to get into the game of speculation, but what I can say is there is no more passionate Quebecer, Montrealer than myself. I mean, I've invested long-term dollars in this province. I'm a big advocate of the province. I think it's Disneyland, or has the potential certainly to be Disneyland of the North. So I am long Quebec. You know, we'll see what happens with future governments. But putting on my business hat for a second, I am the CEO of Group Dynamite today. Group Dynamite is a publicly traded company that is worth a tremendous amount. I have my employees are shareholders. I have shareholders. My mother's a shareholder. I need to do what's best in the best interest of all shareholders and all stakeholders. And if I can't get qualified, competent leaders into Montreal and into our business, then I guess we're going to have to play that one out. But I mean, that would obviously be a last resort, and I really hope that someone comes to their senses before we get to that point. But at the end of the day, it's not about me and my ego. It's going to be about the business, and it's going to be about what the business needs, and it's going to end up being about all business imperatives, if you will.
Extra opening hours is nice, but getting top talent, talent and doing what you need to do for your business would be a lot nicer, I imagine. Okay, Andrew, I got to leave it there. You're great. Thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, thank you. Take care. Have a great day.
Andrew Lutfy there, CEO, Royalmount, Quartier DIX30, and of course, Group Dynamite.
Seasoned gamer or just video game curious? This Week in Gaming is the podcast for you. We break down the latest in the world of video games, from basics to beyond. The hottest gaming news, insight, and industry leaders and more, weekly. Join me, Naomi Kyle, and stay ahead of the game with all the latest updates, even if you're a total newbie. Stream This Week in Gaming on the free iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.